The Mashiach, the Messiah from a True Jewish Perspective by James Scott Trim. Found online. It carries the Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivative Works 3.0 Creative Commons license. We present this particular book to you. Messiah, the Messiah from a True Jewish Perspective. It has the Hebrew here. He will uplift the people and prove that his word and his Torah, or the book of instruction or law, are valid. Rabbi Yitzchak Kaduri. Victory cannot tolerate truth, and if that which is true is spread before your very eyes, you will reject it, because you are victor. Whoever would have truth itself must drive hence the spirit of victory. Only then may he prepare to behold the truth. Rebbe Nachman of Breslev. Table of contents. Preface. The 12th of Ramban's, he was a very popular rabbi. Ramban's 13 Principles of Faith says, I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Messiah, and even though he may tarry, or take a long time, nonetheless I will wait. I wait every day for his coming. Principle 12, 13 Principles of Faith. The present volume presents the Messiah from a true Jewish perspective, using only the Tanakh itself and other ancient Jewish sources such as the Targums, the Talmuds, the Midrashim, the Zohar, the Sefer Yetzirah, the Bahir, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the writings of the first century Jewish writer Philo. A short word about the textual nature of the Tanakh is important before beginning this volume. Between the years 500 and 950 CE, a group of Jewish traditionalists known as Masoretes standardized the Hebrew text of the Tanakh and added written vowels to the text. Ancient Hebrew has no written vowels, just like the original ancient Aramaic had no vowels, only consonants. They may have had an A, etc., but they were considered consonants. This standardization of the text resulted in a single text, with little or no variant readings from manuscript to manuscript. There are slight differences between the earliest Masoretic text manuscripts. Toward the end of the Masoretic era, the last two Masoretic families, Ben Asher and Ben Naphtali, finalized two slightly different Masoretic texts. Most printed editions today use the Ben Asher text as their source. Aaron Ben Asher, who produced the Ben Asher text, was himself a Karaite. Saadia Gaon, who preferred the Ben Naphtali system, mentioned Ben Asher in his critiques of Karaites. In his work Sefer Diduke Ha Te'amim, Aaron Ben Asher wrote, the prophets complete the Torah, as are the Torah, and we decide law from them as we do from the Torah. This belief is known to have been held by Karaites. In contrast, mainline Judaism has always maintained that the prophets could not add to or take from the Torah, and could only be understood as elaborating on the Torah. Furthermore, documents found in the Cairo Geniza also indicate that Ben Asher was a Karaite. The Masoretic text is a valuable text. However, there are some readings in which the other versions and manuscripts, such as the Septuagint, the Peshitta Tanakh, and or the Dead Sea Scrolls, preserve an obvious original reading which was lost from the Masoretic text. The following are just two examples. Psalm 145 is an acrostic psalm. This means that each section of the psalm begins with each of the 22 Hebrew letters from Aleph through Tav. However, in the Masoretic text, The section that should begin with a nun is missing from the text entirely. However, in the Septuagint, the Peshitta Tanakh, one Hebrew manuscript from the Middle Ages, and a Dead Sea Scroll copy of this Psalm 11QPSA, the missing section appears immediately after Psalms 145:13. YHWH, or Yahweh, is faithful to all his promises and loving towards all he has made. The Hebraic roots restores the lost nun section along with an explanatory footnote. Next, let us examine Isaiah 53:11. In the Hebrew of the Masoretic text, this verse has a serious grammatical problem. The Hebrew of the Masoretic text reads literally, "From the travail of his soul he shall be satisfied in his understanding. My righteous servant shall justify many in the iniquities he bears." There is very clearly a missing word in the Hebrew, resulting in two verbs in a row, shall see and shall be satisfied. What shall he see? Now, the missing word light does appear in the Septuagint and has also now turned up in two Hebrew copies of Isaiah found among the Dead Sea Scrolls. The passage should read as it does in the HRV. Is that the Hebrew Revised Version? "From the travail of his soul he shall see light, and shall be satisfied in his understanding. My righteous servant shall justify many in the iniquities he bears." Isaiah 53:11 HRV translation. There are also intentional alterations found in the Masoretic text, so these were done intentionally. These are recorded in the Masorah. The term Masorah refers to the marginal notes which were transmitted by the Masoretes along with the Masoretic text. The notes transmitted in the side margins are called the Masorah Parva or Masorah Katona. The notes transmitted on the top and bottom margins are the Masorah Magna, also known as Masorah Gedolah. Finally, the notes transmitted at the end of the text are the Masorah Finalis. Among the notes preserved in the Masorah Gedolah are those of the Tikkun Sophirim, emendations of the scribes. Among the Tikkun Sophirim are 18 notations which indicate that the scribes, finding the original reading irreverent, emended the reading to one less offensive. Each of these 18 readings are indicated with footnotes in the HRV. See notes to Genesis 18:22, Numbers 11:15, and so forth. These footnotes also compare other textual readings from other witnesses to these readings. The Masorah also noted 134 places where the Masoretic text reads Adonai, which according to the Masorah originally read Yahweh. In each of these locations, the HRV has Yahweh in the main text, along with a footnote explaining that the Masoretic text reads Adonai, but that the Masorah indicates the original reading was Yahweh. These footnotes also compare readings from other textual witnesses as to whether they support Yahweh or Adonai in the reading in question. There are also several places where the Masoretic text reads Elohim, but which the Masorah indicates the original reading was Yahweh. In these verses, the HRV has Elohim in all caps. Now, since the Masoretic text is not the perfect end-all text, we are fortunate to have other witnesses to the text of the Tanakh. Among these are the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Samaritan Pentateuch, the Septuagint, and the Peshitta Tanakh. The Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of scrolls, as well as thousands of fragments of scrolls, found in several caves near the Dead Sea in the Qumran area. Among the scrolls are many biblical manuscripts dating back to a time prior to the 1st century. These manuscripts give us a sample of the wide variety of textual readings from the pre-Messianic period. The Dead Sea Scroll biblical manuscripts vary widely as to text type. For example, 2 copies of Isaiah found in K1 agree very closely with the Messianic text, while a Hebrew copy of 1 Samuel found in Cave 4 has many important agreements with the Greek LXX or Septuagint against the Messianic text. The origin of the Septuagint is well known. Flavius Josephus records that Ptolemy Philadelphus, around 250 BCE, entered into negotiations with the Jewish high priest to obtain a Greek translation of the Torah for the Library of Alexandria. Ptolemy agreed to release many Jewish prisoners in exchange for the book. The Jewish authorities chose 72 translators, and yet this book is the 70, isn't it? The Greek LXX, that's 70, isn't it? The Jewish authorities chose 72 translators to produce a Greek translator of the Torah. Josephus, Antiquities 12:2. Although the Greek Septuagint, named after the Greek for 70, was initially only a translation of the Torah, by no later than 150 BCE, the rest of the Tanakh had been included as well, since at that time the grandson of Ben Sirach, in his prologue to his Greek translation of his grandfather's wisdom of Ben Sirach, briefly compares the Hebrew and Greek versions of the law itself, the prophecies, and the rest of the books. The Greek Septuagint is actually very important because it is the earliest known translation of the Tanakh into another language, and preserves a Greek translation of a Hebrew text of the Tanakh that existed in the 3rd century CE in the case of the Torah, the 2nd century in the case of the prophets and the writings. The Aramaic Peshitta Tanakh is an important and under-recognized witness to the text of the Tanakh. The exact origin of the Peshitta Tanakh is unknown. The Syriac version of the Tanakh is mentioned by Melekh of Sardis as early as the 2nd century CE. Wondering if that's the one that supposedly the native-born Aramaic translator of the Galilean manuscripts was translating prior to meeting a high priest and then buying the Bible format copy of those original Galilean Aramaic manuscripts, indicating to him that a certain Syriac Peshitta or whatever he was translating at the time was wrong because it was from a translation from the Greek Septuagint. Wondering if it is that one. Not too sure exactly. Supposedly he was translating from the Western Peshitta or Peshito. We're not really sure. We'd have to ask him through email exactly which one it was. Hopefully he'll reply us. We do have his email address. Possibly a 1830s or later version that he received for some report he did at his Presbyterian school that he was attending at when he was younger. We're not too sure. One tradition has that Hiram, king of Tyre, in the days of Solomon, commissioned this Aramaic translation of the Tanakh. Another tradition assigns the Peshitta translation as having been commissioned by the king of Assyria, who dispatched Asa the priest to Samaria. See 2 Kings 17:27-28. According to the Aramaic church father Bar Hebraeus, the Peshitta Tanakh originated when Abgar, it's Abgar the Black, king of Edessa. That's the one that had the leprosy, him and his son. He wrote to the Christ to say, can you come heal us? You can stay with us because we've got lots of room in my kingdom. I'll share it with you, all this sort of stuff. But the Christ, Jesus Christ, says, oh no, sorry, I can't because I'm about my Father's work. Because he is destined to be persecuted, die on the cross, be resurrected, and ascend to the Father, etc., etc. So he says, look, I'll send a letter with one of my disciples to you, and you'll be healed by it. So he said, okay, and then the disciple called Adai, or Thaddeus, we believe it's Adai, went to him, and he was, as soon as he read the letter, he was healed. And supposedly this Adai had taken the, or later on had taken the cloths of, or the face covering, etc., of the Christ from the tomb to this Abgar, who treasured it and then eventually they were invaded, they were forced to hand it over, and supposedly this is the Shroud of Turin, which we don't believe it is, because that's one piece, but these were many. According to scripture, he had many, not one single one, covering him. So that's Abgar, king of Edessa, Syria, where the original Tav Asheret, Ishana Atika Sapreya manuscripts from 800 BCE to 900 BCE, roughly around that date, between those dates, was hand copied by scribes and monks in Urhai, Edessa, now modern Turkey. So Abgar, king of Edessa, Syria, which is now modern Turkey, dispatched scholars to Israel to produce an Aramaic translation of the Tanakh, Bar Hebraeus, com to Psalms 10. Vishchal's house suggested that this king was the same king Isates II of Adiabene. This king, along with his family, converted to Judaism as recorded by Josephus, Antiquities 2069-71. This king had dispatched his 5 sons to Israel in order for them to study Hebrew and Judaism. Burkitt maintained that the Peshitta Tanakh originated not long after the 1st century CE as a product of the Jewish community of Edessa in Syria. There is certainly a good deal of evidence to support the Jewish origin of the Peshitta Tanakh. The Babylonian Talmud seems to allude to the Peshitta text, see B. Shab 10b, B. Rosh Hashanah 33b, B. Meg 10b. The books of Ezekiel and Proverbs in the Aramaic Peshitta read very similarly to the Aramaic Targums of those same books. The Peshitta Tanakh has many Jewish liturgical divisions. For example, the Psalms are divided into 5 sections, as in Jewish copies, and the Torah is divided according to the triennial Torah reading cycle. And festival readings are also indicated. For example, Leviticus 23:1, see B. Meg 30b. Moreover, the Peshitta Torah also contains many headings which are likely of Jewish origin. The 10 Commandments, just above Exodus 20 verse 1, and just above Leviticus 17, the Peshitta has the heading. And there's a reference, early Eastern Christianity, Burkitt, page or paragraph 71. The Torah of offerings and sacrifices to compare with the Talmud, B. Meg 30b. The text of the Aramaic Peshitta was originally written in Hebrew letters until this was forbidden by Ephraim Cyrus in the 4th century CE and contains many Judeo-Aramaisms. Finally, many readings in the Peshitta Aramaic Tanakh read Jewish halacha into the text. Many of these are noted in the footnotes of the HRV, it's probably the Hebrew Revised Version. Translation, see notes to Exodus 20:30, Leviticus 16:7, Leviticus 18:21 and Leviticus 24:8. The Aramaic Peshitta translation is a literal Aramaic translation made directly from a Hebrew text which closely resembled the current Masoretic text. Chapter 1. A prophet like Moses. The identity of the Messiah is both crucial, paramount in the Torah. The Torah says, 18, I will raise him up a prophet from among the brothers like unto you, and I will put my words in his mouth. And he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. Deuteronomy 18:18-19 HRV. The 13th century rabbinic commentator Ralbag, Rabbi Levi ben Gershon, writes concerning this passage. A prophet from the midst of you. In fact, the Messiah is such a prophet as it is stated in the Midrash Tanhuma on the verse, Behold, my servant shall prosper, Isaiah 52:13. Moses, by the miracles which he wrought, brought a single nation to worship Elohim. But the Messiah will draw all people to the worship of Elohim. Ralbag on Deuteronomy 18:18. The Midrash Tanhuma, cited above, says, It is written, Behold, my servant shall deal wisely. He shall be exalted and extolled, and be very high. Isaiah 52:13. It means, he shall be more exalted than Abraham, of whom it is written, I lift up my hand, Genesis 14:22. He shall be more extolled than Moses, of whom it is said, as the nursing father beareth the nursing child, Numbers 11:12. And shall be very high, that is, Messiah shall be higher than the ministering angels, Midrash Tanhuma, Isaiah 52:13. Maimonides, in a letter to a Yemenite community, denounces a man claiming to be the Messiah, saying, the Messiah will be a very great prophet, greater than all the prophets, with the exception of Moses, our teacher. His status will be higher than that of the prophets, and more honourable, Moses alone excepted. The Creator, blessed be He, will single him out with features wherewith He had not singled out Moses. For it is said with reference, says to him, and his delight shall be in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge after the sight of his eyes, neither decide after the hearing of his ears. Isaiah 11:3. The Dead Sea Scroll document 4Q175 also speaks of a messianic figure, clearly the Messiah, and applies Deuteronomy 18:18-19, indicating that the prophet, like Moses, was understood clearly as referring to the Messiah as far back as the Hasmonean period. Now, in Deuteronomy 18:19, the Torah says, of those who do not give heed to this Messiah, I, Elohim, will require it of him. What does this mean? The Targum, Onkelos, to this phrase is even stronger, saying, my word shall take vengeance upon him. And similarly, the Greek Septuagint translator rendered the phrase, I shall take vengeance upon him. Certainly the Torah not only foretells the coming of the Messiah, it requires every Torah observant Jew to accept and follow this Messiah. Chapter 2. Two Messiahs or one. The Messianic prophecies of the Tanakh can be seen as falling under two categories which often seem to conflict. Many of the prophecies seem to speak of a suffering servant Messiah who suffers and dies to redeem his brothers. Other prophecies seem to speak of a Messiah who comes and reigns from David's throne forever. One solution to this problem that was proposed anciently was the two Messiah theory. There are two basic versions of the two Messiah theory. There are two basic versions of the two Messiah theory. One, the rabbinic two Messiah theory, which held to a Messiah, the son of Joseph, sometimes called Ephraim, who would come and suffer to redeem his brothers, like the patriarch Joseph, and a Messiah, the son of David, who would come and rule from David's throne forever. 2. The Qumran two Messiah theory, which held to a priestly Aaronic Messiah and a kingly Messiah. The rabbinic two Messiah theory was one of several answers that the rabbis found for these contradictions. It delegated the lowly suffering servant passages to Messiah, the son of Joseph, sometimes called Ephraim, and the kingly passages to Messiah, the son of David. A good example of the Ephraim Messiah in rabbinic literature is a midrash in which the Messiah is being warned by Elohim of what awaits him. Their sins will be upon you like a yoke of iron. They will choke your spirit. Because of their sins, your tongue will cleave to the roof of your mouth. Do you accept this? If not, I will remove the decree from you. The Messiah replies, Master of the worlds, how long will this last? God replied, Ephraim, my true Messiah, ever since the 6 days of creation, you have taken this ordeal upon yourself. At this moment, your pain is my pain. Messiah replies, Master of the worlds, I accept this with gladness in my soul and joy in my heart, so that not a single one of the house of Israel should perish, not only for those alive but also the dead. It is enough that the servant be like the master. Midrash Peskita Rabbah 36. Rabbi Dosa, who lived around 250 CE, was the chief advocate of the two Messiah theory. The Talmud records that he taught regarding Zechariah 12:10. What is the cause of the mourning? of Zechariah 12:12. It is well according to him who explains that the cause is the slaying of Messiah, the son of Joseph, since that well agrees with the scriptural verse. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourns for his only son. Zechariah 12:10. B. Sukkot 52a. The redemptive role of Messiah is known as Messiah ben Yosef, Messiah the son of Joseph, or Ephraim, because Messiah would be like the patriarch Joseph. In the Wisdom of Solomon we read the following Messianic prophecy. Let us see if his words are true, and let us test him by his departure. Wisdom 2:15-17. And here's a footnote underneath. The Wisdom of Solomon, a book found among those known as the Apocrypha. Wisdom of Solomon claims to be a book written by Solomon. Wisdom 9:7-8. Skeptics date the book in the 1st or 2nd century BCE. According to Melekh, in the 2nd century CE, the Wisdom of Solomon was then considered canonical by both Jews and Christians. The Hebrew version of the Wisdom of Solomon is also mentioned by Ramban, another rabbi, 1194-1270 CE, in the preface to his commentary on the Torah. He also quotes from the book. Not only was the Wisdom of Solomon originally written in Hebrew, but the original Hebrew survived until at least 1611. The original 1611 edition of the King James Version has a marginal note to the word pricked in Wisdom of Solomon 1611, which says Hebrew stung. This actually recalls an account in the Torah concerning the life of Joseph. When his brothers cast Joseph into the pit, we read 20. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into one of the pits. And we will say, an evil beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. Genesis 37:20 HRV. There is great messianic significance to this account. Joseph's life was the type of the first coming of Messiah, which parallels the Messiah ben Yosef. The suffering Messiah is called Messiah ben Yosef because his brothers were redeemed by his suffering. Now the Qumran community also believed in two messiahs. They shall govern themselves using the original precepts by which the men of the Yahad began to be instructed, doing so until there come the prophet and the messiahs of Aaron and Israel. Manual of Discipline 1QS column 9 lines 10-11. Two messiahs are also evident in 1QSA IQ28A, where the two messiahs are pictured at a future messianic banquet table. Would there be two messiahs or one messiah? There does seem to have been confusion on this issue. While 1QS 9:10-11 refers to the messiahs of Levi and Israel, the Damascus document 3 times refers to the Messiah of Levi and Israel. 12:23, 14, 19, 19:10. Was there a question as to whether these would be two messiahs or one? A tradition found in Midrash Rabbah may provide the answer. Another exposition of the text, my beloved, is like a gazelle. Israel, explained R. Isaac. Is that Rabbi Isaac? Said to the Holy One, blessed be He, Sovereign of the universe. Thou hast told us that Thou will come to us first. My beloved is like a gazelle. As the gazelle appears and then disappears, so the first Redeemer appeared and then disappeared. Berechiah, maybe that's a rabbi, in the name of Levi, said, like the first Redeemer, so will the final Redeemer be. The first Redeemer was Moses, who appeared to them and then disappeared. For how long did he disappear from their sight? Tanhuma said 3 months, accordingly it is written, and they met Moses and Aaron, etc. Ib v 20.2. The final Redeemer will also appear to them and then disappear. Midrash Rabbah Bamidbar 11.2. Clearly here the two Redeemers are Moses and the prophet, like Moses, the Messiah. We read in Exodus 13. And Moshe, or Moses, said unto the people, fear you not. Stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh, for He will work for you today. For whereas you have seen the Egyptians today, you shall see them again no more forever. 14. Yahweh will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Exodus 14:13, 14 HRV. Therefore, we have a picture of the salvation of Yahweh in Exodus 14:19 to 23. 19. And the angel of Elohim, who went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud removed from before them, and stood behind them, and so forth. Goes on for quite a lot. The first Jewish century writer Philo comments on this passage saying, 2.265, again, when you see, amid the wars and disasters of life, the merciful hand of God and his favourable power held over you and standing in defence of you, be silent yourself, for that champion stands in no need of any assistance, and there are proofs of this fact recorded in the sacred writings, such for instance as the verse, the Lord will fight for us, and ye shall be silent, Exodus 14:14. 2.266, and if you see the genuine offspring and the firstborn of Egypt destroyed, namely desire and pleasures, and pain and fear and iniquity, and mirth and intemperance, and all the other qualities which are similar and akin to these, then marvel and be silent, dreading the terrible power of God. Philo, James, Book 2, 40, 265 to 266. So Philo sees an allegory here where the Egyptians represent desire and pleasures and pain and fear and iniquity and mirth and intemperance and all the other qualities which are similar and akin to these. In other words, Philo sees the Egyptians as representing the sin nature which the rabbis call the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. The first Redeemer, Moses, delivered us from the Egyptians, but the second Redeemer, the Messiah, will deliver us from the evil inclination. Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, 1194 to 1270 CE, wrote one of the most authoritative Torah commentaries in Rabbinic Judaism. He says on this topic, and Yahweh, your Elohim, will circumcise your heart, Deuteronomy 36. It is this which the rabbis have said, if someone comes to purify himself, they assist him from on high. The verse assures you that you will return to him with all your heart, and he will help you. The following subject is very apparent from Scripture. Since the time of creation, man has had the power to do as he pleased, to be righteous or wicked. This grant of free will applies likewise to the entire Torah period, so that people can gain merit upon choosing the good and punishment for preferring evil. But in the days of the Messiah, the choice of the genuine good will be natural. The heart will not desire the improper, and it will have no craving whatever for it. This is the circumcision mentioned here, for lust and desire are the foreskin of the heart, and circumcision of the heart means that it will not covet or desire evil. Man will return at that time to what he was before the sin of Adam, when by his nature he did what should properly be done, and there were no conflicting desires in his will, as I have explained in Seder Bereshit. It is this which Scripture states in the book of Jeremiah 31:30. Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers, etc. But this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Eternal. I will put my law in their inward parts, and in their heart I will write it. This is the reference to the annulment of the evil instinct and to the natural performance by the heart of its proper function. Therefore Jeremiah said further, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people, or he shall be their God. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbour and every man, they shall teach no more every man his neighbour and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. Now, it is known that the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, and it is necessary to instruct them, but at that time it will not be necessary to instruct them to avoid evil, for their evil instinct will then be completely abolished. And so it is declared by Ezekiel, a new heart will also give you, I will give you, and a new spirit will I put within you, and I will cause you to walk in my statutes. Ezekiel 36:26. The new heart alludes to man's nature, and the new spirit to the desire and will. It is this which our rabbis have said, and the years draw nigh, when you shall say, I have no pleasure in them. These are the days of the Messiah, as they will offer opportunity neither for merit nor for guilt. For in the days of the Messiah there will be no evil desire in man, but he will naturally perform the proper deeds, and therefore there will be neither merit nor guilt in them. For merits and guilt are dependent upon desire. Ramban on Deuteronomy 29:6. And it goes on. So we're going to go look down here and see who is that particular Messiah they're talking about. The truth is that the Messiah comes twice. In his first coming he will fill the redemptive role of Messiah ben Yosef, suffer and die in order to redeem his brothers. Then he would ascend to Yahweh, and in time he would come again to bring peace to the world, reign from David's throne forever, and judge the world in the role of Messiah ben David. Chapter 3, the genealogy of Messiah. The Tanakh gives the following criteria for the genealogy of Messiah. To begin with, Messiah must be seed of Abraham. And gives some verses there. Secondly, he must descend from Isaac, and he must be of the tribe of Judah, who is a Shiloh. This Gemara also asks, what is Messiah's name? Rabbi Shilah offers the answer. His name is Shiloh, for it is written, until Shiloh comes. B. Probably the Sanhedrin, 98b. The Targums, Onkelos, Pseudo Jonathan, and Yerushalmi all have until Messiah comes in place of until Shiloh comes. Messiah must also be heir, or the head, or the chief to David's throne. 9:6. For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the government is upon his shoulder, and his name is called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty El. Well, that's possibly wrong there, if the name of God originally was E-I-L, or El. That's the Canaanite name for their particular God, El. The everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. 6:9-7. That the government may be increased and of peace, there be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it through justice and through righteousness, from henceforth even forever. The zeal of Yahweh Tzvaot does perform this. Isaiah 9:5-6, 6-7. While this prophecy is written in the perfect verb form, which generally indicates past tense, we have in this passage an example of the Hebrew idiom or expression known as the prophetic perfect. In Hebrew thinking, an action is regarded as being either completed or incomplete. Hebrew, therefore, knows no past, present or future tenses, but has instead a perfect and an imperfect. The Hebrew perfect may be taken to represent action in the past. The equivalent of the English present tense is supplied by the particle, and the equivalent of the English future tense with other varieties by the imperfect. A Practical Grammar for Classical Hebrew, 2nd edition, Clarendon Press, Oxford, 1959, J.A. Vinegreen, paragraph 56-57. To be strictly accurate, we should speak of forms rather than tenses of the verb, since it is a completeness or otherwise of an action which is being expressed and not the time factor as in English. Hebrew has no tenses in the normal sense of the word. Instead, there are two states. Teach Yourself Biblical Hebrew, R.K. Harrison, 1984, page 68 and 80. Normally, a verb in the perfect form will imply a past tense, which is why some have wrongly understood this passage to be past tense, and that it therefore refers to Hezekiah. Gesenius mentions the prophetic perfect idiom and describes it this way. There are many examples of the prophetic perfect in the Tanakh. Other examples: the place of Messiah's birth. The Tanakh also foretells the place of Messiah's birth. In the book of Micah we read this prophecy: "But you, melekh Ephrathah, which are little to be among the thousands of Yehudah, out of you shall one come forth unto me that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, from ancient days." Micah 5:1, 5:2 HRV. Look, lest we have any doubt that we have correctly identified this passage as speaking of the Messiah, we can see plainly that that our forefathers understood this as well, as the Targum to this verse reads. Yeah, it's got it there. The fact that Messiah was to be born at Bethlehem, is also expressed in the story found in the Midrash Rabbah, as well as in the Jerusalem Talmud. A man was ploughing when one of his oxen lowed. An Arab passed by and asked, "What are you doing?" "I am a Jew," the Arab said to him. And continues. The date of the Messiah's coming. The revealing of that sealed book brings enlightenment and restoration. And he goes on about Daniel and God telling him to shut up the words of a certain book. Seal it up, don't tell anyone. Until the end of time, or the time of the end. So I'm going to skip a few and see what it says further down. The first century Jewish historian Josephus makes an interesting comment about Daniel that certainly points to Daniel as the book we are looking for. He writes, "We believe that Daniel conversed with God, for he did not only prophesy of future events, as did the other prophets, but also determine the time of their accomplishments." Josephus, Antiquities 10:11-7. There's quite a lot of information here. Would probably be better to read it yourself, download it from this particular website. You don't have to sign in or anything, I don't think. You just download it. So you just click on the link that we'll provide and go have a look at it for yourself if you're interested in it. And here is the death of the Messiah. Certainly the shepherd is the Messiah. Smite them at shepherd must refer to as being wounded in the midst of his hands. Zechariah 13:6, when they were pierced him. Zechariah 12:10. So that sounds very much like Jesus the Christ. Very much. He gets them nails pierced through his hands. Psalm 22 is a favourite among Christians since it is often linked in the New Testament with the suffering and death of Jesus. A well-known and controversial reading is found in verse 16, where the Messianic text reads, "Like a lion are my hands and feet," whereas the Septuagint has, "They have pierced my hands and feet." Among the scrolls, the reading in question is found only in the Psalms scroll found at Nahal Hever, abbreviated 5-6 Hev PS, which reads, "They have pierced my hands and feet." Moreover, the grammar is not correct in the Hebrew for "like a lion," since the phrase would lack a verb. Many insert additional words to make the text read like a lion. They are at my hands and my feet. The understood verb of being does not work here, because "like a lion are my hands and my feet" makes about as much sense as "like a pizza are my hands and my feet." There's a whole lot of verses here. And it's got similar to what Christians believe is the Christ. "But he was pierced because of our transgressions, he was crushed because of our iniquities. The chastisement of our welfare was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned everyone to his own way, and Yahweh has made to light on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, though he humbled himself, and opened not his mouth, as a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and as a sheep that before her shearers is dumb. Yes, he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, and with his generation who did not reason. For he was cut off of the land of the living for the transgression of my people, to whom the stroke was done, or was due. And he made his grave with the wicked, and with the rich his tomb. Although he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased Yahweh to crush him. He has put him to suffering, to see if his soul would offer itself as a guilt. Suffering to see if his soul would offer itself as a guilt. Okay.